Ancient megalithic stupa of Java Island. The ancient megalithic structures called Indonesian temples, many of them know about, many of them have been in travels. But few know who built them and why. Many researchers and ordinary observers are inclined to paleocontacts. In part, these theories are true only in the fact that most of these buildings are not made by man, but this is only partly true. We are Tam Secrets of the World channel or zisofatoday.space site, will tell and show, but again only in our opinion according to our assumption, by whom they were built, based on our personal opinion, copyright, energy, vision, logic, and experience point of travel to such places. In many so-called temples available to tourists, in addition to stone stele, with different images and scenes, restored, i.e., replaced by new ones in plants are present, do not notice 99% of visitors, the inscriptions on the stones. Stela, Ancient Greek. Stone, marble, granite, or wood stove, or post, with text or image carved on it is established as a funeral or memorial sign, is not to be confused with the obelisk. For the most part post or conical column. Stone steles with images of gods and men with a variety of subjects, in the restoration and changed to fit comfortable to the official history of painting. Thousands almost no notable characters, inflicted mainly on the supporting wall of stone blocks, not restored and remained in its original form. In addition to the inscriptions, stone blocks have a complex geometric shape, with certain peaks and valleys. It is a kind of bonding locks, which are found in the megalithic buildings on all continents and islands of the world, for example, in the ancient cities of Iran and Africa, South and Central America, Europe, Turkey and many other places. Some of the listed places you can find the link on our playlists, and movies on our YouTube page that you see on the screen. The inscriptions on the stones in Indonesia have runic origins, the most ancient runic language on earth. This is an Old Russian. They enjoyed ancestors giants Aces, who lived in ancient Tartary. Much of Tartary and the giants kept people in China. See for yourself by clicking on the links on the screen on our copyrights movies about ancient construction, giant military bases for UFOs and Sumerian sites of absorption, pain and death of people. But runic language used as well and seized the land twilight, as the runic language is universal for programming and control of matter. This is also shown in our films on the geoglyphs and the megaliths of China, where there is very much character. Who are the Sumerians? You can learn in detail in our films on the links in the annotations that you see on the screen. Why do these inscriptions were applied to plants in Indonesia? For clarification, this is not Indonesia or any other modern or ancient runic language such as Sanskrit or Tibetan, which is used Buddhists. This language is unknown to official science. We assume inscriptions in the builders of these structures, the Sumerians, to control people's minds and to maintain a global network degradation and the illusion of the world. Briefly, the principle of influence and control will tell later. These stone structures often border on outcrops of land, clean earth flows, better known as a place of strength with positive energy, hitting the places and absorb the positive charges of the earth. Man becomes emotionally and physically better, and people mistakenly think that this is these buildings that border the place served as a source of healing power of grace, but unfortunately it is not so, in fact, the temporary illusion of relief. The Sumerians deliberately lead astray, to a person physically and mentally more than was in contact with the Sumerian software installation. A simple example. A man walks on a range of views that is already eye contact, through the optic nerve to the brain, or just nearby, the human biofield in contact with the biofield structures, and people thinking that it brings good, opens the door for strangers, demonic voluntarily, alien clones energy, and other malicious programs. Who came to him with the voluntary recruitment in prayer or meditation, but while in this location, energy parasites, demonic entities in the fields of energy, go with the man after visiting such facilities. Physical contact with the construction may also be affected. For example, when a person is tired under the hot tropical sun, and leaned against the stones or sat on them. Tired, relaxed and with full conviction that he was in a safe place, here's an excellent field for the introduction into the body. In all cases, the person while in a position in contact with the energy information program Sumerians, the program is not only written in the crystal lattice of stones, but also supported by runic characters printed on the surface. Such a structure is a giant computer, as well native to human ancient runes, used by the Sumerians brusque and root as the code of influence and mind control. Runes written in a certain order create a certain scheme that resonates with the circuit structures are similar to giant processors are the same as the microprocessors in computers. If you look on top of the buildings, they are exactly like the transistors in our modern electronics, which also is based on the Sumerian technology. In fact, this giant computers that help manage the Sumerians' people's minds and assemble with their own energy to recharge for the continuation of their immortal life on our native soil. Bell-shaped dome and built like a special type of aircraft. Sumerian octopuses telepaths, they observe and perceive like a UFO. Pyramid and bell-shaped structure helps to focus and allocate energy between the planetary grid, octopuses, UFO ships, space and underground bases. The whole system is used to feed the gods' stellar systems, of which we have already described in our films on the links visible on the screen. People after visiting these unusual places behave no less strange. From past experience it is to communicate with officials, serious people, astrologers, scientists, doctors from St. Petersburg and Moscow, that is, with people who are the culture of the masses can be safely talk about the complete zombie awareness of the cultural elite of Russia. All, without exception, regard themselves as pharaohs and queens of Egypt, are the ones who often trips in Egypt. It is very funny to read quite serious allegations, that they are the pharaohs of one era. For example, Tutankhamun and Ramses was just 11 people at a time. At the same time of Tutankhamun's father Akhenaten dynasty once and 7 people men and each fancied himself present, and the rest were swindlers and impostors. Ramses smaller only 4 men. People that visit Mexico each year and are close to the pyramids, again without exception, consider themselves the kings and queens of the ancient Maya and other local residents at the time. And such people form the official history. Of these, there are doctors who are training on the provision of medical psychological aid. Perhaps this is why our science and history will still be a long stay in the swamp. It is thanks to the Russian cultural elite zombie, half of advanced discoveries in science and technology used by the West and the United States and sold in Russia. Returning to the main theme of the film, we assume that rune also served as an assistant in the construction of stone structures. Using runes went telepathic mental impact on the stone structure. Runes are the basis of the control of matter in the universe of the matrix. It is possible to turn back the clock and undo the laws of physics, teleportation stones, and create the effect of levitation to move, in the construction. Like clay, stone was attached to any shape and size of the megalithic blocks of stone perfectly jointed with each other, without the slightest gap. With the help of mental effects, you can also change the crystal and molecular structure, giving the product a unique specific properties or getting a brand new material that is not in the nature. For example, in the 20th century by the Americans in Florida, USA, was built megalithic coral castle with a lot of sculptures, and he did not use any tools, but only on the basis of certain knowledge of runes and their own power of thought. But I remind you again that this is our personal opinion, assumption. Returning to the main theme of the film, we assume that rune also served as an assistant in the construction of stone structures. Using runes went telepathic mental impact on the stone structure. Runes are the basis of the control of matter in the universe of the matrix. It is possible to turn back the clock and undo the laws of physics, teleportation stones, and create the effect of levitation to move, in the construction. Like clay, stone was attached to any shape and size of the megalithic blocks of stone perfectly jointed with each other, without the slightest gap. With the help of mental effects, you can also change the crystal and molecular structure, giving the product a unique specific properties or getting a brand new material that is not in the nature. For example, in the 20th century by the Americans in Florida, USA, was built megalithic coral castle with a lot of sculptures, and he did not use any tools, but only on the basis of certain knowledge of runes and their own power of thought. But I remind you again that this is our personal opinion, assumption. Another example of the use of runes is not the construction of facilities, and the construction of airships without complex technical stuffing, without motor fuel. At the beginning of the 20th century in the United States lived a mason, who was fond of aviation, having hidden from most people's knowledge, he was able to build aircraft, driven by the energy of air and controlled by thought. He wrote the manuscript, which made drawings and various inscriptions with runes. The runic language of the manuscript masons is similar to the runic language that is used on current spaceships Sumerians. Records from a manuscript similar to the inscriptions that are seen, for example, from the wreckage of the crashed UFO ship in the United States, as well as cigar-shaped ship in Kyrgyzstan during the Soviet era. Let's return to Indonesia. In addition to the facilities here you can find megalithic artifacts such as large boilers, tanks hollow inside, and closed lids on top and sometimes open or destroyed. They are like a huge bowls, we call them the guardians of the energy beam. More about energy, see our previous films on link in the annotations on the screen. The same boilers can be found in Laos. In Indonesia, there is a hermetically closed boilers, open and some of them, human growth above, and up to several meters. Some outside under the bottom, visible likeness of the legs, apparently for better stability on the ground. On the lid, there is a kind of bulge for holding the mechanism, both lids of pots in the kitchen. It seems that this was done deliberately in size to a certain huge creature's hands, or a giant mechanism or person. They focused on a particular area of the valley, they do not occur or were destroyed in other parts of the island. Just in one particular region is a cluster of different, but very similar to each other with faces of stone pillars. They outline and size is very similar to the famous statues of Easter Island. The island is located at a distance of thousands of kilometers away from Indonesia. These stone giants, as well as on Easter Island, are half dug into the ground. On the backs of the giants of Easter, also plotted drawings and runes, that a three-dimensional model of the giant Easter Island. Similar symbols can be found on the giant pillars of Indonesia, with the flat square plate on top, as well as on the head with the giants of Easter Island. There are some plates of round forms like hats. Now on the screen you can see a comparison of the symbols on the artifact Indonesia and Easter Island. In addition to the stone giants on Easter Island there are a large number of complex architectural structures. You can see the stone circles, cellular premises. Strange stones about drilling in these holes or notches. There are also inscriptions and drawings on the rocks, representing the characters in the form of spirals, others depict humanoids to birds' heads. We call such entities Sumerians, aliens performers, appointees from the gods' stellar systems rulers. The same image Sumerians humanoid hybrids of birds, and there on the stone giants, they are applied to the back of a giant stone structures. There are also stone balls, stone spherical form. Such balls can be seen in the far north of Russia, as well as in South and Central America. Balls though polished to a smooth state. Many constructions of Easter Island are similar to dolmen of the Russian Caucasus. Under the island there is a huge network of mazes and caves, these caves artificial and natural origin which previously flowed magma. There are facilities like a sacrificial altar, and of various other forms of megalithic structures. This network of tunnels can lead to people not even open the underground city. Many of the underground passages, littered with stones and flooded, UNESCO is engaged in the security of these artifacts. It does not allow to carry out serious research on Easter, so much of the island remains hidden from view. In the stone cliffs on the island, were not fully cast in stone giants. Some of them have remained unfinished walled in rock. In addition to the Sumerians with birds' heads on Easter Island there are stones, which show the Sumerians' telepaths UFO, i.e. grey humanoids. On the rocks are clearly visible large almond-shaped eyes. We call them UFOs telepaths octopuses. On the island of Indonesia, you can find a large stone statues of a single stone the size of a few meters depicting people or creatures approximately similar to humans. These statues may have been poorly implemented, and it can indeed depicted the face, not of the human species. Here for example, two statues with figures of sitting on something or someone. A detail that makes them special is their habit, specific clothing, and something similar to the backpack. In places bends the elbow and shoulder pads there are some, as special protection suits or suits of astronauts. For example, the astronauts during spacewalk also use the likeness of a backpack, where the life support system. Such human or humanoid image technologies are not joined with the lifestyle of the indigenous population, they were far from high-tech. Rather, it is the Sumerians, who led the processes in the region or their protégés among the people for the government. There is also other evidence suggestive that thought. Some statues, faces similar to a humanoid face, with big eyes like gray. Any figure feline animal in which the man legs, and behind another of the same animal of the cat family. Other figures represent one people, or people with animals, here, for example, a man with an elephant. Other statues are partially destroyed, and consider that they are shown, it is difficult. Just periodically in Indonesia exhibit strange designs on the coast. Melted or cut in a coral reef, not assembled from individual blocks carved in a giant coral monolith. Perhaps this is part of the technical installations, megalithic cities. Here are photos of some of them. There is a clear plan of square buildings and blocks of stone. Some dug in the sand, relatively recently, their approximate maximum age of 300 to 500 years. It is known that during this period the ocean level was much lower than it could be, as the city with the ports and marinas, and other kinds of technical constructions. For example, the construction of Nan Madol in Micronesia, like the construction of the coast of Indonesia, if you view the diagram of Nan Madol from the air, he just looks like a technical circuit. Many researchers, while in Nan Madol, notice that the rocks present strong electromagnetic fields. It is checked by simply putting the compass on the rocks, the compass needle starts to rotate in all directions. Nan Madol is composed of basalt pillars standing on the coral base. Facilities of the basalt columns are found in thousands of kilometers of Nan Madol on top of Pyramidal Mountain in Indonesia. On one of the Pyramidal Mountains, i.e. Farmed Mountain Pyramid, which in Indonesia is not small, is a megalithic complex of basalt pillars. It destroyed more than a set of Nan Madol, but has a similar shape. Basalt columns that make up these structures, weigh up to 5 tons, and by pull and push them not to build on top of a high mountain or in the ocean over the water. Naturally, manipulation stone's energy is human thought, the power of thought. We assume that the island empire with people able to manipulate matter, of which the Sumerians themselves taught knowledge to build the necessary facilities to them again lowered to the level of primitive people, so to speak, the bare survival, and complete loss of knowledge. The Sumerians did not want people to have gained freedom from Sumer or receive power over the Pacific region and do everything ran. That is why in the legends of many peoples of the Pacific region remained the myths about the gods, destroyed their city and empire. In Indonesia, as in other Pacific islands, you can find small pyramids, as well as very unusual hole in the rocks. Some holes have the convex arcuate curves of the sides and straight flat corners. It seems that the rock was cut like a hot knife melts the butter, with extraordinary modern technologies easily. Through the power of thought, these stones, like clay, gave the desired shape. Science is afraid of opening of such artifacts, so only a few tourists are in the jungle notice these buildings, and they said no. But in the villages can be found ancient stones carved in round holes, like in ancient times, people have worked with modern drill. On the island you can also find the structures known as dolmens, such as in Europe or Russia. The current generation of residents replicate ancient architecture, building cubic monuments with square plates, standing on pillars, which resemble giant tables. This type of architecture was in the ancient coastal cities. Who of these sarcophagi with plates, standing on pillars, made tombs for the dead? Many of them are decorated and painted. We assume that the indigenous people of Kyrgyzstan, arrived in the mountains of Tian Shan, ancient Russian Tartary, is now the Kyrgyz Republic, is a Pacific islander. The peoples of the islands and Kyrgyz have common traditions, costumes, hats, and even ancient monuments are similar to the increased edibility. For example, the Kyrgyz national headdress similar not only in headgear Indonesians, but also on the stone hat stone giants of Easter Island. Another example, from the Indonesians and Kyrgyzstan, there are similar games and competitions on horseback. Even the stone pillars with faces with Indonesia is very similar to the Kyrgyz menhirs, ancient stone obelisks. Domestic houses. The Icelanders have a conical or pyramidal shape similar to the Kyrgyz yurt. Incredibly, there is even a modern statue of copying each other. Statue of Manas in Kyrgyzstan and almost the same similarity statue of a warrior on a horse in Indonesia. Frankly, at the Kyrgyz warrior on horseback much beautifully turned out. Once again we remind you that all the above this film is a personal opinion of the author based on the polarization of knowledge, strengthening the logic and power of thought.